Hello, welcome everyone to the WISIONS webinar today. Today we're going to be focusing on beyond cooking biodigesters for family farming in the global south. We've got a really terrific lineup of speakers today. I know people are continuing to come into the room as I speak, but we've got a great lineup of speakers. We're going to start out with Wellington Ortiz. He's from WISIONS and the Wuppertal Institute in Germany. Next up, we'll have Lillian Rodriguez from Red Biocoal in Colombia. Next, we will have Alex Eaton, the founder of Systema Bio, based in Mexico. And last but not least, Kevin Kinusu of the Kenya Biogas program. And we're really pleased to have this third edition of our webinar series. We're going to talk about how biodigesters and biogas can support farmers to increase the efficiency of their farm and improve their overall well-being and livelihoods. You might know that biodigesters are best known for cooking, and there are a lot of national programs that have actually promoted it for this purpose very successfully, but they're more than that, and they can help improve the livelihoods of rural households. And especially, they can treat organic waste, they can improve the management of soil nutrients, provide clean energy and organic fertilizer, to name just a few of their advantages. So in this webinar, we're going to discuss how biodigesters can support farmers to improve things on the farm. But we want to know as well, and we're going to hear from our speakers, are the benefits of biogas and biodigesters being deployed by farmers? If so, where is this happening? What are the gaps or the missing links that might hinder the uptake of this technology? And lastly, how can family farmers be better supported to take advantage of biogas and biodigesters? So before we launch directly into the webinar itself, just want to remind you all that we are taking questions. You can take the opportunity to send us a question. Let us know exactly who that question is for, or if it's for all of the panelists, because we're going to have time for question and answer during the webinar. So the format is that we give some quite short presentations. Each person will have about 8 minutes to speak, and then we will go into questions, and that way we get to have really a discussion on the topic. Before we launch into things though, I do want to remind you that we'll also have another webinar next month in June, and this is going to focus also on the productive uses of energy, but it'll be a little bit broader than biogas and biodigesters. And before we get started, I do want to just launch a poll and get you guys involved. So what we want to know is where you're located today. Basically, which continent or which region of the world are you based in? Are you based somewhere in Africa, perhaps somewhere in South or Southeast Asia, and in other parts of Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean? Or Europe and North America. So we're curious to hear your responses and see where you guys are all based. I'll give you a few more seconds. I know some of you are just entering the room, and I'm seeing people continuing to enter. So welcome, everybody. We are getting started. Just to repeat the title of the webinar, it's Beyond Cooking, Biodigesters for Family Farming in the Global South. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and close this poll. If everybody has voted, who wants to vote? Oh, I see a few more people voting. Go for it. I'm going to close it. Okay, thanks everybody. I'm going to share that with you now. We see we have 0% in Africa today, but let's hope that changes because we have such a great speaker. We have Kevin Kinusu, who's based in Kenya. He's going to talk to us about their whole national biogas program. So let's hope some folks in the continent do turn up. But right now we do have 35% in South or Southeast Asia, 6% in Asia other, 12% over in the LAC area, and 47% in Europe and North America. Okay, great, everyone. And I think I do one more quick question. Let's go ahead and do that here at the beginning, and then we'll come back at the end and do one more. So here's the poll. So why are you interested in biogas or biodigesters? Why have you joined the webinar today? Are you perhaps working more in energy or more on agriculture? Are you a researcher? Are you a policymaker or working for a non-governmental organization or other? Maybe you yourself are a farmer. Maybe you're in the private sector. like Alex. Maybe you're a consultant. So let's see a little bit how everybody votes there. I'll give you guys just a couple more seconds, and then we're going to go directly over to Willington Ortiz for our first presentation. Thanks everybody for joining. Okay, let me go ahead and close that and share that with all of you so that we have a little bit of an idea of who everybody is today. Okay, just share that with you. Okay, great. So we don't see so many energy and agriculture practitioners today. We do see quite a lot of researchers, policymakers, and NGOs, and people who would fall into the other category. Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone for sharing that about yourself. So I'm going to go directly over to Willington Ortiz. Let me just select to share his screen. Brilliant. He's already doing it. Yeah. Hi, Willington. Okay. I turn everything over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Molia. And on behalf of the whole WISIONS team, I will also like to say welcome to all of you and thanks for joining us to talk about biodigesters as means for strengthening family farming. My name is Willington Ortiz. I'm research associate of the Wuppertal Institute and part of the staff running the WISIONS initiative. In the first part of my presentation, I will like to give a very quick overview of the history of biodigesters in the Global South. It will be an extremely fast trip across time and space. So please fasten your seatbelt and take care. Biodigesters have been in the Global South for a long time. So the first well-documented applications can be traced back to the 1930s when Mr. Lo Guo Rui, a Chinese inventor, was granted a patent for commercializing his design. There are also reports on efforts to develop and apply biodigesters in India and Nepal as early as in the 1950s, actually. And in Africa, in Tanzania, the Center for Agricultural Mechanization and Rural Technology, CAMARTEC, they started working on biodigesters adapted to conditions of East African farmers already in the 1980s. And documented developments in Latin America can be traced back also to the 1980s. In Colombia, for example, where a group of people around Professor Thomas Preston worked in development of low-cost tubular designs. And I'm very happy to have today Lillian Rodriguez with us because she knows this history very well. And actually, better say she was and continues to be part of this fascinating history. So as you can imagine, one can find a huge diversity of innovation through this long period of time and across many countries and regions. And you probably all know this very common typology that groups digesters into three main types: the fixed domes, the floating dome, the tubular designs. And yes, these generic types describes the most applied digesters in the Global South, but there is still an innovation going. There are people and organizations working in other geometries, materials. So innovation is still going on, and innovation is also going on and happening not only in designs and digesters, but also in approaches how to integrate digesters into farming systems. So some of you probably have, for example, heard about this idea of the 3-in-1 model, which seems to be very often used in China, which combines biodigester with the improvements of kitchen, pig pen, and toilets. So it's a kind of integrative function of biodigester. There are also approaches that combine biodigesters with agroecological practices. Lillian can talk a lot about it. And one can find also innovations in business approaches. And today I'm very happy to have Alex Eaton with us because the history of his company is actually a very nice example of continuous innovation efforts, from the digester designs, materials, biogas appliances, up to financial schemes and the whole business model. And I hope Alex will not sweep me because of this picture there. So we also find diverse examples of programs and projects. promoting the technology. So there are examples of very long national programs, like the cases in China and India, where the first, let's say, consolidated versions of national programs were established during the 1970s. During the 1990s, the Nepal program was kind of a very known example how to organize the promotion of domestic biogas among or for rural marginalized population. And in the 2000s, we can find several programs in South and Southeast Asia. And SNV, the Netherlands Development Organization, has played a very key role in this part of the story. And they, together with other international cooperation agencies, established the African Biogas Partnership Program, which is bringing all these experiences from Southeast Asia in order to support the establishment of programs also in Africa. And this is a real pressure for me and for us to have Kevin Kinuso today, because he's playing a very key role in this part of the story also. He's the manager of the biogas program in Kenya. So as you see, we have a very top 3 panelists today. So I would like to move to, after this extremely short historical overview, let's focus on the central topic of the webinar. So the most common arguments or motivations for promoting biodigesters go something like this. So by promoting a more convenient and clean fuel for cooking, which is the biogas, biodigesters can help in replacing the use of unsustainable dirty fuel. So on the other part, by treating the manure from livestock activities, pollution of soils and water can be reduced, and the effluent of the anaerobic digestion can be applied as biofertilizer. So in this way, we can improve nutrients in the soils and increase crop productivity. And finally, other central topic often used is the idea of improving the sanitation's possibilities of the household. And so together with some colleagues of the Wuppertal Institute, we have been researching about the processes by which biodigesters are adopted and diffused in the global south. And we have conceptualized these processes as socio-technical transformation. In one of our studies, we did a detailed review of 23 scientific articles reporting on biogas programs in 12 different countries. And in the following slide, I would like to highlight only a couple of the results of that study. And if you want to have more details on this study, please don't hesitate to contact me. I will be happy to share other materials. So what we actually found is that there is a strong focus on energy among all these reviewed cases. All the cases have kind of highlight the energy part, which this means actually that these programs represent very serious efforts in improving energy access of rural populations. So are improving clean energy access for cooking. However, the attention to other livelihoods elements have been very low. We found very scarce evidence on the actual use of effluents, but also when there is somehow of use reported, there are no or low evidence on the impacts of that use. There are also lack of assessment on the actual use and effects of sanitation. And there are very, very few, or rather very marginal observations about other application of biogas, for instance, to support other farming tasks by providing heat or electricity or mechanical power. That's very, very marginal in that kind. So our results point to, in one sort, I would just want to highlight this part, is they point to the need for building knowledge about the practical and effective ways of using effluents, for example. So kind of contextualized knowledge about how to do it better or more effective, but also how to use also the biogas for let's say productive uses. So our results indicate also that culturally sensitive strategies for promoting the application in sanitation are very key for advancing this part of the livelihoods impact. So I would like to close my presentation with this slide, which is actually an invitation. So my proposal is to think about biodigesters as means for strengthening livelihoods of family farmers. And not sure if all of you are used with the idea of family farming, like the concepts involve strong linkages between families and farms, which is not only the reliance on family labor for the operation of the farm, but also a central component of identity. So farming as such as element for defining ways of living. So it's a cultural element also there. So like kind of the culture in the word agriculture, you know, and that's very key in the concept of family farming. And according to the FAO, family farms produce about 80% of the world's food in value terms, and they are collectively the largest source of employment. But family farmers are facing very strong challenges, which although they are very diverse, there are some kind of commonalities in these challenges. For example, climate change, the lack of suitable financial service, but also the lack of innovation systems, taking them serious. Taking their actual needs, their conditions, but also their own knowledge and resources. So that's one of the results of a study for the FAO. And the invitation is to think the promotion of biodigesters by asking which livelihoods assets should be addressed or strengthened in order to support family farmers to adopt and integrate biodigesters in their lives. And from my particular perspective as a researcher, we are seeing that there are new visible challenges by thinking in that way. For example, it is not only about knowledge about operating and maintenance of physical assets of the biodigester, for example, but it's also about how to pursue the conversion of the whole agroecological system, so from the farming system to more agroecological systems, or how to support the establishment of farmer associations. So let's say acting in the social assets, or also how to co-design suitable financial solutions. So I'm already very interested in knowing your reaction to this invitation, and very looking forward for the further discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wellington. That's really fascinating. And just while you still have it here on the slide, everybody, I've been sharing it in the comments, but please do go to www.wisions.net and also wooperinst.org. Thank you, Wellington. And we will move directly into the next presentation that we have from Lillian Rodriguez. Let me just send her a request to share her screen. Hi, Lillian. And just a reminder to all of the audience, I see we've already gotten some great questions from Wellington's presentation. Please do send in your questions. Let us know who that question is for. Hi, Lillian. Are you there on the line?
Hi. Yes, I am online, but I cannot see the link right now.
Let's see. Let me try sending that through to you again. Let me make you the presenter.
Okay, now it's here.
Okay, perfect. So we're very much looking forward to this. Yeah, and it's a great presentation, everybody. So just like Wellington's kind of set the scene, now Lillian is going to take us a little bit more in depth and really go out to the fields with the farmers. So I turn it over to you, Lillian.
Okay, very good. So good morning, everybody. My name is Lillian Rodriguez Jimenez. I come from Colombia, and I was invited to talk about beyond cooking biodigesters for family farming in the Global South. I am from the University for Tropical Agriculture that was set in 96 in Vietnam. I had the opportunity to work until 2012 in Southeast of Asia. And now I am in Tosoli Farm, and I am part of the UTA Foundation. And in 2010, we got part of Red BioLab. And in 2012, we were founders of with some other organizations of the Colombian Network for Energy from Biomass. Our farm is a farm with social projection, and UTA Foundation has the chance to work with the communities and doing research, and mainly on energy issues and food and feed sovereignty. Tosoli is a farm in Colombia in the mountainous area with a comprehensive and coherent proposal, food and energy sovereignty as a key for development, and integration of animal and agricultural production, always valuing the residues. The challenge for us is to respond locally to the global problems, such as global warming, the rapid decrease of fossil resources as an energy sources, the reduction of phosphorus sources, the conflict in the case of our country, soil and water pollution, the lack of awareness of producers and consumers. Also, we are challenged to respond to this mineroenergetic model in Colombia that is based on hydroelectrics and oil mainly, with a lot of disasters, environmental and socially. And also we have the education model where recycling and renewable energy is left out of the curricula. Monoculture production depending on agrotoxics is other challenge that we face. So in this diagram, you can see the way we try to connect all the animal production with different species with the energy resources. But those energy resources are coming from the residues. So all the animal manure and all the waste from the human activities is recycled through biodigesters, and all the fibrous residues from the farm are treated through gasification, that is another technology, to generate electricity and to produce a biochar. The biodigester for us is a key element, and is not only cooking, it has always given us the chance to start to integrate the activities in the farm, and always people. People is a key factor. People involvement at all levels. The biodigester is a tool and a starting point to integrate the farm, the family, and the community. It always happens. The biodigester is set in the family, and the family start to think, oh, I have these elements, and how can I integrate them in the production? It's an example of innovation. It's a gas reservoir. It's a picture from SIPA Foundation that is part of our founders of the network, and it's an innovation made by a Colombian farmer in 1989, and it had become something that we use every time when we set a biodigester. The plastic biodigester allow always the participation of the community and the formation of women and men technology promoters, and young people are always present too. This is a picture that shows how the plastic biodigester is an alternative to solve problems with the septic tanks for sanitation, as Willington was mentioning, and with co-digestion with pig manure is a solution for energy and also produce effluent for fertilization. I wanted to show this picture because it's a biodigester tank set in our farm here in Tosoli, and it has 16 years working. It has been working for 16 years despite this plastic material. Bigger scale of biodigesters are set also in plastic with the good results, and in these cases, the biogas is also used through motors adapted to produce electricity or to generate heat. The other technology I was mentioning in the diagram was the gasification. Gasification allows us to use the fibrous residues, different in any case, depending on the location, sugarcane bagasse or coffee pulp that we have been working with it in the last 2 years, and we generate gas, synthesis gas, and where the hydrogen is the main product, the main combustible gas, and then we are interested in this byproduct, this black byproduct that is biochar. Why? Because it is, when we combine it with the effluent and microorganisms, this picture on the left shows a degraded soil, and the picture on the right shows the degraded soil using biochar and using effluent from the biodigester. So we can improve the soil conditions, improve the structure, improve the water holding capacity, and of course we improve the biomass production. We also use in our strategy the solar panels for lighting as a tool for the energy sovereignty in using 12 volts and a small system that people can set and are available for them, and harvesting water to use to be used to wash the pig pens and the cattle pens. So in that way we do an efficient use of the rainy water, and it becomes a way to do irrigation later on using solar pumps. The use of the effluent and the biochar for home gardening is very important. Being able to produce organic food that goes to the just markets. Community integration and work in the network is very important. The interdisciplinary work and intergenerational work that has been developed through, like the fact is the biodigester, and it has become something that is very important because we cannot work alone. So this networking is from the local to the regional to the national level, going to also to working about on the residues, how to recycle different residues. This is a picture of various pictures from last week. This is a woman in a community nearby that has been very empowered through the field days we have been doing in our network, and then she's using the biogas effluent, involving the family, involving the children, the young people, and this is her home garden, and this is the coffee plantation. She was telling us how she has been using the effluent for this last 7 years, and almost now is 100% using effluent to fertilize the coffee. So, and with a very good results. And all this picture is showing the use, starting the research with the rice production using the effluent, because rice needs water and needs nutrients. So we are starting this process right now. Our way of work is workshops and field days to share knowledge on low-cost plastic biogas technology, use of tools of solidarity economy, such as rotatory funds, where one of the credit lines is to set up the biodigester or irrigation systems. This is something that we have learned from our organization, not something that we started with, but we learned from organizations that are doing this for more than 25 years, having a lot of biodigesters installed. Project preparation and funds go to rotatory funds. That is something that we learn. So we get some money, we try to agree with the community, so the money is not given, it's going to a rotatory fund, so we can start to grow up this fund as a way to introduce the technology. We promote the technology working on advancing in the value of change. So when we have energy in the farm, we can transform the products and we can give added value, that we can preserve them for more time. The possibility to sell the products in just markets, local, regional, and national markets. So it's a way to, okay, I can produce meat, pork, or coffee, or rice, or whatever. I can use it for my home consumption, but I can sell the excellence in a just market. So I am really motivated to set a biodigester. We are working on the confidence stamp on the red biocoal, that is a stamp to say these products are coming from farms that are working in an agroecological way and are using energy, renewable energy, and are processing the residues. Definitely, biodigesters are more than cooking. Women, men, youth, children empowerment is very important. Community empowerment promotes integration at farm level and at community level. Development of local tools to promote the technology is something very important, the innovation, and also the bottom-up development. We are working on somehow not national program, but coming from the bottom, coming from the communities, from the experiences that we have had for more than 30 years. And also connecting to the beginning in our network, we had 57 organizations believing in the biogas technology. All of this started because of the biodigester. So biodigesters are more than cooking. Thank you very much, and I'm ready to share more knowledge, and here my contact.
Thank you so much, Lillian. That's a really, really fantastic presentation, really giving us some on-the-ground, hands-on examples. So great to hear about the field days that you've been having, and especially this woman with her coffee plantation who's really seeing results from these techniques. So thank you so much, Lillian. We will move on directly now to Alex Eaton. So let me just send Alex his request to share his screen. And Alex, hi, are you there on the line?
I am. How do you hear me?
Perfectly, perfectly. Wonderful. So I will turn it over to you directly. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Good morning from Mexico City. I'm Alex Eaton, the co-founder of Systema Bio, and I'm also one of the co-founders of Red Biolac, which was formed in 2009 as an idea of sharing biogas information around Latin America. And that's something that Lillian referenced. Lillian's been a leader in Red Biolac and then has taken that even further and deeper in forming the Red Biocol. And I think she's an excellent example of the deep areas of knowledge that are available in biogas and a real inspiration to people in that organization and a good friend. So it was great to share with WISIONS and also with the KBP today. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Systema Bio, but probably more important to this conversation, I also grew up on a small farm and was really aware of the gaps that small farmers have. So as Willington mentioned, farmers produce about 80% of the food that's grown and consumed, yet they don't have access to technology, capacity building, and financing that's catered towards their needs. So if we consider about 400 million small farms with 2 billion people there, about 1 billion of those people living on those farms are some of the poorest people on earth. So we see a really important cross-section of farmers, but we also believe really deeply that this association with farmers and poverty is actually probably more a result of market failures and the aforementioned lack of technology, capacity building, and financing appropriate to small farmers. And now that we see how important they are to the global economy as employers and as the growers of our food, we should probably start thinking about how we reduce the huge economic, health, and environmental costs of the waste, energy, and agricultural management systems for these small farms. The other thing that's extremely important is obviously the role that agriculture plays in global warming, and we see our work is directly trying to address the adaptation of small farmers to climate change, but also the mitigation of carbon in the future. And I think there's a lot of ways in which farmers can participate. Lillian mentioned biochar, but obviously the digester, in terms of being able to reduce fuel use and chemical fertilizer use and improve land use is a key part. So we can see this importance of small farmers, but so our mission at Systema Bio is basically to create value from waste. So to take something that today is actually a source of problems that we have and turn it into something valuable and productive for small and medium scale farmers. So our central intervention is essentially a complete prefabricated biogas system that we developed. Basically, our grandfather, you could say, would be the tubular digester that was developed in part by Lillian Rodriguez, who's on the call today. And what we've done is take advanced custom-built membrane systems and put that together as a complete turnkey package. So something that it's actually not that easy to build your own digester if you don't have access to really good training and really good resources. So for farmers that maybe don't have time to participate in that, they want to have a turnkey system that will allow them to have everything they need in one system. So basically, our entire drive is based on this value proposition for farmers. So everything we do, we really break down to return on investment for farmers, and that is basically assigning costs. So very clearly documenting in our baseline assessments the challenges that people face. We've spoken a lot about these, but the most important is likely the chemical fertilizer costs and the energy costs that really drive a huge part of the direct expenses that that small farmers have. So our value proposition therefore can be measured in an ROI, which we keep under 2 years, but ranges anywhere from about 10 to 18 months. And we have basically converted that value proposition in a response to the challenges that farmers face into a business model. So it's made up of 3 distinct areas, basically our manufacturing, distribution, sales, and implementation, and then an asset finance program that we've developed. And all of that sits on a digital operations platform that allows us to track impacts over time. So I'll just go really quickly. Our product is unique on the market in its use of materials. It's extremely durable to UV and the other sort of very tough conditions that farms can face, very easy to install, and it comes in a lot of different sizes. So we have systems from 4 to 400 cubic meters, which covers a wide range of small farms. So just a couple photos here, you can see what it looks like at a household level. That was India, this is in Kenya, this is in Mexico, getting a little bit larger, and then we can start combining our largest units together to make even larger units. And this would be an example of a 200 cubic meter unit, for example, that can receive up to 2 tons of organic waste per day. And as we start getting into these more larger and more complex farm, we have to basically build around the systems of the farm, potentially integrate more advanced pretreatment systems, and deal with a lot of different types of challenging site conditions. So we do work on cooking and do emphasize cooking, but it's not the only thing we do. So we have stoves, boilers, space heaters, and other thermal uses that are designed to be productive. So for pasteurizing milk and for other productive uses. Cheese making, space heating, and warming piglets are very common thermal uses. But we also have a line of small engines that actually, thanks to a grant from WISIONS back when, we were able to really spend some time refining, and now we offer a line of modified gasoline engines that allow us to focus on mechanical energy, so water pumping, milking machines, grinding machines, and electricity generation. And we have a pilot right now with larger scale electricity generation, really trying to dig into how we improve the reliability and reduce maintenance on electrical generators, which are tied into electric grids. This is sort of the base that we use, engines that are available all over the world and can be connected directly to different milking machines and other mechanical uses. Another really important aspect of our work is the biofertilizer application. We have hundreds of thousands of hectares using biofertilizer today, and we manage directly about 500 hectares where we've been doing long-term research on both how we're sinking carbon into the soil and improving the soil quality over time, but also just the very practical management of the biofertilizer. So how do you transport it? How do you move it? How do you apply it? In what doses? That is relatively challenging for farmers, and obviously time being their most limiting factor. As Willington already mentioned, we have a very detailed program that makes sure that we provide the same level of service over time. We found actually that the #1 most important thing around implying digesters was a follow-up detailed capacity building over time. So really our goal is to make sure that every farmer receives the type of training and adoption work that is required. And so that includes service, monitoring, a whole series of manuals and follow-up free service lines. And we also have an asset financing program. We have about $3 million under management now that allows us to provide in-house credit with 0 interest. So we really think of financing as a tool to remove the first cost barrier, and we do all of our own origination and collections using as much innovation as we can, specifically designing payment programs around farmers' lives. So not making them pay during, say, the seasons where they're buying seeds or when kids are returning to school and those sorts of things, and making sure we make these flexible within their payment possibilities. And then this is all managed on a data management platform where all the data is collected on smartphones and translated to a back-end cloud-based program that allows us to see everything all the time and in real time, track our clients, track our technicians, and track the productivity. We're doing this from 5 field offices around the world. I mean, many offices, but 5 sort of central hubs: Mexico, Nicaragua, Colombia, Kenya, and India. In Kenya, we're excited about working with the Kenya Biogas program. Also in Nicaragua, we worked with SNV and are starting new projects in South America as well. From these hubs, we hope to have access eventually to about half of the small farm population. And so our impact to date, we're really excited about. Actually, this is slightly outdated. We just crossed over 5,000 units installed, which has major impacts on a number of these other challenges that we've spoken about. Just quickly in closing, I think it's important that even from the 3 sort of speakers today, that we're all, I think, working towards the same goal, which is just to ensure that when these kids grow up, these kids installed this digester when they were all very young, and the youngest wasn't even born yet. So these children will never know a time when they weren't converting waste into cooking gas or fertilizer, and that's really the future we're trying to create, where this level of innovation is no longer novel. It's as common as a tractor or an irrigation system, and it's something that the proven health and environmental benefits will benefit this generation. So really, that's our mission. We're taking a sustainable business approach to that, and trying to work as much as possible with NGOs and researchers and other organizations. None of this is possible, obviously, without our team. We're over 120 biogas professionals around the world today, and obviously with lots of support, including WISIONS, including SNV, and the Kenya Biogas program. So with that, I'll close, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Alex, and congratulations for reaching over 5,000 units. That's a great feat as well. So thanks so much for giving us this view, especially from the private sector, and how you're also collaborating with researchers and NGOs. So I think up next we will have Kevin. Kevin, are you there on the line?
Yes, I'm online.
Okay, wonderful. Let me just request that you share your screen, and we'll get straight into your presentation. So as everybody knows, Kevin Kinusu is from the Kenya Biogas National Program. So as you can see, as we're moving through the webinar, we're kind of going from our scene setting presentation to the grassroots with Lillian, a little bit of an intermediary of grassroots and other levels of private sector work with Alex, and now talking about the national program that I understand has a very close collaboration with SNV, who we were quite keen to have represented, given their work with various governments and nations around the world on biogas and biodigesters. So Kevin, with that little introduction, I see your screen is perfect, and I leave it to you. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to join on the webinar. This it's actually evening in Kenya. It's around 4:50, and mine is to talk about our experience in building a sustainable domestic biogas sector. I'm going to talk specifically about Kenya because that's where I'm based, but you'll realize that what is happening in Kenya is part of a bigger program, which is more than 5 continents, and in Africa is in 5 countries, which is Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Burkina Faso, and in Kenya. I'm the program team leader for the Kenya Biogas program, and I'm going to share some lessons on how the Africa Biogas Partnership Program, which is a program run by both HIVOS and SNV, how it carries out its entry into markets and develops a sustainable biogas sector in different markets. To start with, the critical question to ask ourselves is why biogas? We know that we have a problem, and we have 2 sets of problems that we are looking at. First is the energy problem, and we know very well that more than 2.9 billion people are still using traditional biomass for cooking. And we also have what we call a soil problem. Most of our soils actually in Africa, and to mention in Kenya, are highly degraded, and we need to do something about it. And that is why, as the Kenya Biogas program, we and SNV and HIVOS as a group, we choose to contribute towards solving these 2 problems by introducing this technology, what we call the Biodigester technology. And the technology aims at looking at how we can transform the household. As you realize, we're talking about domestic biodigester systems, and that's what we focus on as a program. And really looking at how do we turn the domestic waste into productive use for the farmer, both for energy and also the farm. How did we do it? Our story begins from 2009. And in 2009, up to until 2013, we had our first phase of programming launched in the 5 countries in Africa. What we did was to introduce the technology in a big way in the regions, especially in Kenya, because until 2009, we only had about 500 documented biodigester systems in the country, and a majority of those were actually large systems in large farms and in institutions. So our first role was to set up a subsidy plan for the first phase in 2009 to 2013, which basically was focusing on creating the market. And when looking at creating the market, we look at both ends, the supply and the demand end. And from the supply end, we were looking at making the product available to the farmers. And from the demand end, we're looking at creating awareness and also establishing a value proposition for the farmers or the clients to take up the technology. And of course, governments, national NGOs, and also grantors and funders are very critical in ensuring that we create a market sustainably. 2019 was our second phase, which we are now going into the second level of our programming, which was basically market establishment. And on market establishment, you're moving away from an entirely grant-funded program into a market-based program. And on this phase, what we focused on is to look at now the supply end more keenly and see ways that we can motivate, incentivize, and build the capacity of businessmen or entrepreneurs to take up the market actively. And that's why we focus on building the capacity of construction entrepreneurs, and also encouraging more companies and investors to come into the market to supply their technologies. And one of those that we are working with right now is actually Alex Eaton with Systema Bio. Up until now, from my last slide, we've actually had 60,000 units constructed in the country. However, it has not been simple. We've had very many challenges. And one of the challenges that we are looking at is how nascent private sector engagement is, especially in the developing markets, because it requires a lot of investment for you to set up a company and also run it in Africa. So transitioning people from masons to biogas construction entrepreneurs is a big challenge, and also motivating companies to invest in alternative biodigester technologies like what Eaton is doing in Kenya and other African countries. Availability of finance is also a challenge, especially supply of end user finance and also finance for the companies themselves. And one of the most critical challenges that we're looking at is ensuring that all systems that are constructed are working, because functionality is the buzzword for expanding and increasing uptake of biodigesters, especially in a context whereby people have not believed that you can actually generate power from cow dung. What are the opportunities that people need to be looking at when you're building biogas programs? From our end, we look at it from a market-based approach, and the different levels of market development that we have observed or learned over time is three. Number one is market creation, what we did between 2009 to 2013. Number two is market development, what we are doing currently from 2014. And number three is the market facilitation, where now the market has understood the technology. Businessmen have taken up the technology, and what we are doing is just facilitating relationships and creating conducive environment for the market to grow and scale. So this is the kind of trajectory that we are looking at. We are talking about you can actually enter into a country, and some of the countries that SNV and Heroes have entered to intervene, actually you find that there is no existing market for biodigester. So you have to start from zero, where you educate, you train, you introduce the technology, you bring in investors and all that, up to until when you get to the highest level of market development, which is now market facilitation. What do we see as our future? We are looking at ourselves getting into a level whereby we are doing market facilitation. And what will this entail? Number one is to ensure that various companies in each section of the value chain are actually active in the market. We have multiple different products. Like in Kenya right now, we have over 7 technologies, different technologies, including now the fixed tone. And there is dynamic competition between the companies, and the competition is actually based on the price, quality, and service delivery to the farmers. And on the demand end, we want to see a situation whereby we have a structured market, and that is well organized for different investors to come in and do business. There are critical elements that we need to consider in market building. Number one, it is important on entry into a market, you have proper market intelligence. For example, when we got into Burkina Faso, we actually thought that the southern region would be high potential for biogas, only to realize that the northern region, which is dry and faced with a lot of drought spells, was actually the bigger market for biodigesters, because they needed the bioslurry or the fertilizer for their crops. It's important for you to establish a good quality assurance mechanism, because as in Kenya, we say one non-functional biodigester is equals to losing a whole village in terms of marketing the technology. Access to finance is also critical, both end user access to finance and also enablers, for example, like microfinance and SACCOs, who need to extend credit to farmers. Also, consumer education is very critical, and business development support, both for entrepreneurs and companies. The other critical element is also policy and regulatory systems. For example, in Kenya, we have companies that are still grappling with issues around taxation on appliances and also on materials used to fabricate the digesters. And it is important that at policy level, an enabling policy environment is created for these companies to thrive, because for some countries, actually a biodigester is a basic need. For example, like a country like in Burkina Faso, for you to have a biodigester, it means survival for the household. As opposed to to other countries like in Kenya, where biodigester is actually a market product. So we need to actually have market enabling policy and regulatory systems to enable the technology to thrive in a country context like in Kenya. Finally, we are also not ignorant of the global developments. So we also align ourselves to our contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals, and from our analysis, a thriving biodigester market would actually contribute to 9 SDGs. most of the people who are involved in the biodigester sector in actually energy for cooking provision at the household level are women. So we're looking at intervening at that level to ensure that women have the best of their experience. And also we interest men into getting involved in energy for cooking, because we realize that most of the households with biodigesters actually have more men getting into the kitchen, because now cooking has become fashionable and easy. So also affordable and clean energy is one of the goals that we're contributing into. Climate action, because of greenhouse gas emission reduction, is what we're contributing to. Good health in terms of preventing diseases that are being caused by indoor air pollution through the using of biomass cooking fuels. Of course, the element of bioslurry as an organic fertilizer is important to reduce our hunger problem and increase food security because of increased productivity on farm level. And of course, improving the quality of the soil and life on the land is one of the things that a biodigester well used can actually contribute to. We create a lot of job opportunities. When you look at companies like Systema Bio in Kenya, they've created a lot of job opportunities, both from marketers to installers to people who are carrying out after-sales service. All those are opportunities that we can create out of doing something that is actually improving the livelihoods of people. Of course, the sum of all this is to reduce poverty and, of course, increase life on land. That is our contacts for the Kenya Biogas program. We can find us on our website at www.kenyabiogas.org, or you can write direct to us at info.kbp.co.ke. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kevin. That was a really fascinating presentation. Thank you for bringing across so many important points that I hope we'll be able to go into in the discussion. I'm just going to share your website with the audience while I'm thinking about it. Perfect. So everybody can go to kenyabiogas.org to learn more about our work. Something I'd like to do here very quickly, just before we launch into the panel discussion, I'd like to do one more poll with you. And this poll is about, let me go ahead and launch that. This poll is about what is, in your opinion, the main challenge for family farmers and the use of biodigesters. I think we've heard about a few of these challenges here already, but I'd like to really hear the audience's opinion, and this also helps to direct a little bit the discussion that we'll have now with the panelists, and that way we know a little bit more what to focus on. I'm just going to take a note of what you guys vote for. So I see only a few people have voted, so I'm just going to keep talking here for a second. And also, if you guys had questions for any of the presenters, please send those in. I know you're probably thinking of some. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you, and we want to hear what, don't worry how advanced or how basic the question is. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're thinking about. What are the challenges in your part of the world? Whether that's financial, whether that's capacity building, regulation, all of these issues. So we'd really love to hear from you on that. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and share with you guys what you voted for here. Okay, so I'm just going to close the poll. If there's any last votes, get those in. Oh, I see a few people. All right, I'm going to close it here right now. Okay, so I go ahead and share that with you guys. Okay, let me share that with you. Okay, so your opinion on the main challenges on this topic. Okay, we see quite a few people saying both capacity building, financial issues, technical issues. I'm just going to take note of this so that we focus on these things in the discussion, and that's really nice to have this sort of live feedback from you all to help us direct what we pay attention to here, right? Because we see less about the management and planning and regulatory aspects, right? So let's de-emphasize those in the discussion based on your feedback here, and let's emphasize the capacity building, the technical aspects, and the financial issues, which I think our panelists are going to speak about in any case. Okay, perfect. And so let me just take that down and switch back over to kind of our holding screen, and I think we've got that up there with Willington. So Willington, if you'd kindly share your screen. Perfect. That way you see everybody's names, and if you have a question as we're talking, you've got their name there. You can pop that into the chat and send that over to us, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. Okay, so what I want to do now, first and foremost, is to start off the discussion. And our first question is going to be to Willington. So Willington, if you don't mind bringing yourself onto the discussion here. Hi, Willington.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this has been such a fascinating webinar thus far. Now let's delve a little deeper. And we've got time. We've still got another half an hour within the webinar. So let's take time here to listen to everybody and also get to some of the audience questions too. I'm really keen to do that because you guys are asking some great questions I see here, and I don't want to miss those. But we have a few questions of our own first. So Willington, the question I want to ask you is kind of a broad question, but really it's about this top-down versus the bottom-up approach. You know, you and I were talking about the benefits of both of them, and in a way they're part of the same puzzle, really, two sides of the same coin, you might say. So what are the strengths and weaknesses of a top-down versus a bottom-up approach to biodigesters and family farming?
Yes, Molly, thank you. Yeah, that's a very broad topic, very interesting also. So in general terms, I will say there are like two main difference between this idea of top-down and bottom-up approaches, which is it's already difficult to make a line or a border for this, but I guess all people have an idea of what is sort of the difference, and I think there are like two main factors. One is the distance or the closeness to farmers. So and I'm referring not to the distance in physical and geographical dimensions, but also in terms of understanding farmers' perceptions, concerns, abilities, their own knowledge, etc. So that's my idea of distance. And the other factor is the resourcefulness or the possibility to extend or the scope of the intervention. Let's say the scope of intervention that you can do through the bottom-up initiatives and the top-down. So in general terms, the main idea of bottom-up approach is often relying on capacities of local farmers associations or cooperatives or any sort of organization, of local organization. This kind of organizations are expected to be close and interacting with their members, where farmers are kind of members of cooperatives or associations. So and there are also even some examples we have also heard about a bit today of associations or organizations that are also so consolidated that they provide also some kind of technical support. They are able even to provide technical support or some kind of microfinance schemes, etc. So approaching biodigestion through these channels can help in bringing probably solutions that are somehow more better adapted to those kind of local needs or conditions and abilities. But I guess the other part of the coin is also that this kind of bottom-up initiatives have a limited geographical scope and limited resources also. I'm not talking only about finance, but also resources of influencing policies or influencing research or coordinating, for example. And that's where, for example, we can jump now to the idea of top-down programs, which is commonly implied establishment of national-wide institutional structures, let's say, through and through these structures, there larger amounts of resources can be mobilized. So the scope is more larger, and there are these more possibilities of mobilizing more resources, which I mean resources, not only finance, but also institutional capacities or technical trainings, for example. So quality and certification schemes like we heard from Kevin, or credit line subsidies. So that's a kind of other dimensions of resources flow. So, but in the other way, through it is somehow of course difficult somehow to organize that kind of structures, institutionalized structures, in a way that the likeliness of adjustment interventions or components of these programs to give better responses to the diversity of farming systems and farmers' realities. Mm-hmm. So there is a bit of difficulty of how to bring this diversity into this top-down coming components, etc. So I guess, at least from my perspective, that's kind of the balance between the weaknesses and strengths of the one and the other. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you so much, Wellington. I mean, I think that gives a very good insight into the fact that in some sense we need kind of a meeting between the two, and they both need to influence the other. So in a way, maybe a bit like some of your diagrams, that it's a circular process rather than top down and bottom up, but perhaps circular and connected. But we'll hear some more thoughts on that. I'm going to move over to Lillian now. So Lillian, are you on the line?
I'm here.
Hi, Lillian. Yeah, so my question for you, so hello. We were just hearing from Wellington, and he was saying, that it's not just, resources aren't just about finance, but also capacity building and other things, right? And influence on policy and research. But what I want to hear from you on is financing, because I understand the work that you do is quite interesting in the sense that the financing is in the hands of the farmers and their communities. So I'd like to hear more about that, and I'd like to hear from you specifically one or two reasons why this has worked for you so far.
Yeah, first of all, to clarify that it's not like a common aspect that we manage, or that communities in general from the network are managing right now, but we learned from one of the communities that is Asproinca. They have this rotatory fund, and we try to learn and understand, and they are sharing with us, and we are trying to set up another rotatory funds in other places. For me personally, the main aspect is that the money is with the people. Yeah, so if we have a project to set up biogas, then the resources are in the hands of people, and people make the regulations for that rotatory fund. Nobody else. The community sit and talk and decide what and how to do the rotatory fund. So it's the rotatory fund, and then after 20 years of experience, they have grown the resources, and they are using the resources not only for biogas, because as we said, biogas is not only the gas for cooking, the methane for cooking, but it promotes integration in the farm. So the other aspect is that people can use those resources to also improve their productive system, and at the same time to have an agroecological approach, so to have benefits from the economical and environmental and social way. So for me, that is a key aspect: money in the hands of our communities, money in our hands, and development resources used in a right way to grow up and to empower the individual, the family, and the community. And the other thing is just to mention that is something that we can do at the community level, but then we can do at the regional level, and we go to the national level.
Thank you so much, Lillian, for that insight into the financing and how that could be more in the hands of communities. So now I will move to Alex. Hi, Alex. Are you there on the line?
I am. Hi.
Okay, great. So my question for you, so I'm staying a little bit still on a bit of a financial topic and sustainability, right, of businesses. So from listening to your presentation, Systema Bio helps improve farmers' bottom lines, but what about your own bottom line? Many businesses, as you know, have to close their doors due to financing issues, and which can be related also to policy and regulatory regimes. How do you ensure that Systema Bio is a sustainable business and that it continues to offer farmers value from waste?
Yeah, that's a great question, and obviously one we think about a lot. We starting in Mexico, I think, was a really important component of this. We started in 2010, and we had some startup capital, and so, but Mexico doesn't actually have a biogas program. It doesn't have fixed subsidies. We didn't have access to, say, NGO or international financing. So we really had to learn early on to be sustainable and very, very efficient as a company. I guess living through very lean years allowed our entire team, and I think the culture of the company, to really focus on how do we transfer the highest amount of value for the least amount of cost directly. And I think that that's informed a lot our product and services that we give to farmers. I mean, our central idea as a social business is that we're using a company format as a way to be as efficient as possible. I believe there's a lot of inefficiencies built into NGOs often. And so when your direct, perfect feedback loop comes from your client, the person that's actually paying you, that allows you to really fine-tune the product and service. So we've actually been profitable since 2014. So the last 5 operating years, we've been profitable. As a social business, what that looks like is basically reinvesting any margin back into the services and to the R&D and the other things that we provide. So, for example, we don't make interest on our loans. You know, we agree 100% with Lillian. We believe as much value as possible should stay with the farmers and in the communities. And the other thing that we do is we really leverage as highly as possible the existing networks, the existing farmer organizations, to ensure that as much as possible the work that's being done is happening on the ground, which keeps our costs low. I mean, more recently, we're obviously have been able to raise investment, so that obviously helps us grow and do so in a sustainable way. And so obviously with, and then programs like KBP that offer small subsidies. So for example, in Kenya, farmers have access to about a 90 euro subsidy, which that helps keep the market moving and allows us to offer the best possible price. And then I'll just close by saying sustainability fundamentally for me is about keeping clients happy. So Kevin mentioned that if one digester doesn't work, it's essentially closing off an entire village to market. So we're really, really obsessed with having our systems work, and not only having them work, but provide the level of value that the farmer expected. So that really comes down to setting expectations with the farmer, never exaggerating the benefits, always being clear about the amount of work that they'll have to do, and ensuring that when you come back 6 months later, 2 months, 2 years later, 5 years later, that those farmers are ambassadors for you. Because farmers are actually a group of people that take decisions slowly and adapt to technologies relatively slowly. In not all of them, but as a population. So you really need to be in this for the long run, and making any short-term sales of systems that might not last for a very long time is very costly. And I think that that's the fundamental reason that a lot of biogas companies have gone out of business, is they just haven't actually delivered the results and the client satisfaction. And so we've really focused on that, with the technology being one element, but ensuring that the payment plans and the customer service really live up to expectations. So I think that those are the bases that we have as a sustainable company. And now that we're doing a lot more volume, like this year we'll do over 3,000 digesters, which is about half as many we've done in our entire history. That allows us to then gain a lot of economies of scale, which allow us to be more sustainable. Yeah. I think that's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alex. I mean, and I really like your point taken. It's very much taken on the sustainability side and the fact that exactly if you return in 2 years or 5 years, you want to still see things not only working, but working well. And like you said, delivering that level of value that the farmer anticipated and that has been agreed with the company like yourself. So thank you so much, Alex, for bringing up that very important point. I'm going to loop back around now to Willington with an audience question. Hopefully this will be okay for you, Willington. Let me know if it's if you don't have the numbers in front of you. But the questions that I have, there are two from the same person. So the first one was, how much will it cost a farmer's household in the Global South to install a biodigester? Now, if this is something that's a little bit more appropriate for one of the other speakers, let me know. And then the other question, just to put these together, what's the percentage uptake of biodigesters so far in the Global South?
Percentage. So the cost, I don't have the figures now. I can look for that now, but in general, in our study, we of these 23 scientific papers, we make a kind of overview of the cost that are given in these reports. So, and we found something around $200 US up to 5 or 800 even. So, and in different countries. So if you want to see the exact figures, I can send you the paper. But the interesting thing there is it is the question what costs are there. And this is a difficult question to resolve, even in these scientific papers, because it is often not clear what is in the cost, and it seems that most of these costs are related to the material cost, and some of them are also reflecting some kind of labor cost for installation. But as you have heard already from, for example, from Alex and also from Kevin, there is a lot of other things behind installing one biodigester. So there are a lot of other costs. Let's say this program cost. For example, in the slide of Kevin, there was a kind of box below the supply and demand box, and these were I don't remember. Yeah, the ecosystem box. So, and there are a lot of things there like quality standards, sector coordination, training, etc. And these are also costs. And I'm sure that most of these costs that are reported in the literature are not have this kind of, let's say, ecosystem cost in it. So there is a very, very tricky question. So you can have kind of the material cost, which seems to be something between $200 and $800, and more specific cost of you can probably ask to Alex, but it's a question of what this cost means. Yeah? It's very important to have that in mind. And regarding the share, it's a difficult question because you can. It's first of all known where to put the 100%, let's say. And for that you have to look at which kind of family farmers are able to install or to use really in an effective way biodigesters. And it's not the whole population, rural population, the global south. So for example, if you don't have animals or enough manure, installing a biodigester does not have any sense, for example. And there are a couple of factors there. So as one of the things that SMV, for example, always are making before going into programs is to having a kind of study of what are the feasibility or the potential, let's say, so a very raw estimation of how many households or family farmers can really use effectively on biodigesters, but I really don't know the chair of this. Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. And I mean, just to say to the audience as well, if you all want to be in touch with any of the speakers afterwards, for some of these more specific questions, we're more than happy to put you in touch. You can send an email to us. You can just reply to the confirmation email that you all received, and that'll come to us. Yeah, but okay, thank you, Willington. We will move to Lillian now. Lillian, are you there? I have a question here. And one question that I would like to ask you. Now, this is a little bit about the question between household level biogas versus village level biogas. And I thought you might have an interesting perspective here. And sorry, let me take you off mute there. Lillian, if you're there, if you can just unmute yourself and I'll ask. Perfect.
Yes, I was waiting.
Sorry. I was also accidentally muting you, so no worries. So the question that I have here is kind of about this household level biogas versus village level biogas. And this question comes from a person who's wondering whether household level biogas tends to serve more wealthy households and doesn't serve poor households. This is an open question. Does it mainly do that? And then the follow-up question.
Yeah.
Okay, but then the follow-up question is then, so does village level biogas then reach more poorer households? So let us know, is there any difference between kind of this household level and the village level in terms of really reaching the people who need it the most?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think it depends on the kind of technology within the biodigesters. If we have a low cost technology, it can reach the very poor, no? So, or if we have tools to set those digesters in these households, and even we have farmers or people that they don't have biogas, but the energy issue makes them to have to start with the 2 pigs, let's say, and then to set a biodigester, and they start to see the benefits for the gas for cooking and the effluent and also the economy, because they have a way to save some money. So I think the digester goes, it fits in a very good way to poor farmers, to wealthy farmers, and even to medium and big scale farmers. So I think there is a room for every kind of digester. It's like a car. You want to go to a certain place, and then you take a cheap car, or you can go with a BMW, and then you will spend a lot of money. So I think biogas can reach the poorest, definitely. If we have the technology in the hands of people, then it will be easier, because then the community promoters will be in charge of that sustainability of the technology. No, so we have examples, some very good examples of development, no, of the digesters in poor and very small scale farmers.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you so much, Lillian, for your response to that. Thank you. And moving on directly to Alex now. Alex, so I have a question for you here. It's based actually, I mean, it might overlap a little bit between you and Lillian, but you guys might want to both answer a little bit. So this question is specifically about Brazil. This person is based in Brazil, and they've said that for most people, regarding organic waste, most of them see composting as the most suitable technology, including farmers. So given the fact that people in the past apparently tried to have these technologies, but these were like poorly constructed, they had a lot of problems with the biodigesters themselves. What do you think maybe it takes to kind of rebuild some confidence in biogas and biodigesters?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's fundamentally the question that we built first Red Biolac on, which was, how do we ensure that best practices are shared and we don't allow people to continue to make the same mistakes over and over, which is, I think almost every country in the world has examples of biodigesters being implemented poorly, and that's often done by well-intentioned NGOs or university students, or yeah, even just members of the community that get a little bit of information, but maybe not the whole story, and try to do something that doesn't work. And then this, just coming back again to Kevin's point, the worst thing in the world for biogas technology is one biodigester done poorly. So Red Biolac is really focused on making sure that information is available in language that's appropriate to the Americas. And I'm really excited that over the last 2, maybe 3 years, Lillian can also comment, we've been working a lot more closely with some really good organizations in Brazil through Red Biolac, which is to say that language was a barrier. So we sort of envisioned it initially as a Spanish language resource, but now have been trying to integrate a little bit of Portuguese, or Português, which is the combination of Spanish and Portuguese. And that has opened up a lot of collaborations. I think Brazil's just a massive country, so they've had really good experiences, and they've actually have a lot of innovation happening in biogas, and they've also had very bad experiences. So the reason we don't operate there is more from a policy standpoint. It's not a great place to open a company in terms of just the ease of doing business, and it's a relatively large country that doesn't have the same history of family farming. So a lot of the farming in Brazil is actually relatively industrial, with smaller pockets of family farming. But just to get back to the first part of that question, biogas and compost are not at all in conflict. In fact, we install composters or some sort of composting system at almost all of our biogas units. And that's because there's some things that aren't great for composting, which is a lot of the fibrous materials. And if you don't, so there's a place between the slurry that would go into a digester and the fibrous materials that could go into a gasifier, where compost is really the best use of that material. And actually, big compost piles are one of the best ways to use 100% of your bioslurry. So you can apply a lot of bioslurry directly in the fields, but because of timing or transport or other issues, if you can't apply it directly onto the fields, then applying it to compost piles allows for a consolidation of nutrients. And so we see compost as the ally of biogas fundamentally. However, if you have to sort of distinguish between the two, a lot of what's happening in terms of taking the nutrients that are in manure and making them available for plants. So raw manure does not really have nutrients that are directly available to plants until it's broken down by organisms. That happens in about 30 days in a closed environment in a digester, so you retain a lot more of those nutrients. When you do that in a composter, you tend to volatilize out a lot of the nitrogen, and depending on how you manage the compost, you might lose other nutrients to runoff. So there definitely are some distinct advantages to biogas, and then obviously, unless you have a relatively advanced compost heat recovery system, then you're likely not getting any sort of the energy benefits out of your organic waste if you go straight to compost. So those would be some of the benefits of biogas versus compost, but generally speaking, they should be used together. And we love Brazil and hope that we'll continue to share and collaborate with Brazil, both as Systema Bio and through Red Biolac. Lillian, I don't know, maybe you might have some other perspectives on Brazil as well, since you've been managing that a bit closer.
I'll try to loop back around to Lillian, but I'll just move on to Kevin right now, just so that we're coming up on our on the end of the webinar. But again, a reminder to everybody, please, if you want to know more, we want to hear from you. We'll put you in touch with Lillian, Alex, Kevin, Willington. So to move to Kevin right now, Kevin, I've got a few questions for you. I know we're here at the end of the webinar, but I do want to give you a chance to talk, and I think people can hang on just one more minute to hear from you, because we really need to hear about the situation in Kenya. It's such a great example. So I have a few questions for you. Most of them are very quick. So number one, I know you can speak to the cost, right? But we also have a question, so I'll just tell you the questions here, and then you can speak to all three of them like kind of rapid fire.
Sure.
but no rush, you know. But to tell you, so the cost is one question. I know you can speak to. Another question we have from the audience is about quality control and monitoring. That's really important. We hear that, and also to kind of bring in something that Alex was mentioning just now. Is that point about ease of doing business and regulation. What is in place in Kenya for the biogas and biodigester area? What's already in place that allows people, because I understand Alex is working there, so what allows that ease of doing business in Kenya? So if you don't mind just addressing that cost, quality control, and regulation and ease of doing business, that would be great.
Okay, then I'll do it in a minute. When it comes to costs in Kenya, a farmer or a client can actually access a biodigester system from as low as $550 for the smallest unit that we promote, that is a 4 cubic meter, which could probably give a client 1.5 hours of continuous cooking time, to about $1,000, that is for a 12 cubic meter. All technologies that we promote fall within that cost bracket. When it comes to quality control and maintenance, we are very strict. All technologies and all companies that work in Kenya actually get what you call an endorsement from the program. We have their products tested for a period of time in a real farm situation for about 6 months. We monitor the performance of the product before we can endorse the product for the mass market. Number two, we have a very elaborate quality control protocol that runs through 1 year. Every client that gets a biodigester is given a 1 year warranty by the contractor or the company, and they have to offer 2 sets of after-sale service, 3 months after first usage of the biodigester and 12 months to close the warranty period. And before that, all clients who get a biodigester, it is mandatory for every company and contractor who's constructing a system to offer them what you call operational and maintenance training. And number two, we have an infrastructure of extension service providers who offer extension services to all the biodigester owners and train them on O&M, operational and maintenance, and also train them on the usage of the biofertilizer. When it comes to the last, which is ease of doing business in Kenya, I think generally it has been made simple to open a company or a business. In 2 weeks, you can have an establishment registered if all documentations are ready. And number two, for biodigester specific companies, we have a law that actually exempts VAT or tax for complete units or systems, prefabricated system of biodigesters coming into our country. So that reduces the whole product cost. Because of the tax cut on the VAT and also on the import duty. We are also working very hard to have our country develop standards in relation to prefabricated systems, meaning that the ready-made systems that are being marketed in the country.
Thank you so much, Kevin. That's really helpful information to have. And just a few last notes here. So everyone, that's basically the end of the webinar. I want to thank everyone here who spoke and for giving us their insights from so many different areas of the world. I do see one note from an audience member that I did just want to bring up, which is about Brazil and family farming. It goes back a little bit to what both Willington and Alex were talking about. So in Brazil, apparently it is family agriculture is responsible for producing about 70% of the food consumed in Brazil, although it only occupies about 24% of the land in Brazil. So that's very fascinating, right? Even if it's taking up much less land than the larger industrialized farms, family agriculture is actually producing nearly 2/3 of the food, or 2/3 or more of the food consumed in Brazil. Very fascinating. Thank you to Barbara